Everybody, we're going to get started here with Dr. Dan Murphy's webinar. I'd like to introduce Dr. Dan Murphy to you guys. He was a professor of mine, like I'm sure he was for many of you. He was voted the International Chiropractic Association's Chiropractor of the Year in 2009. His website is dedicated to the scientific validation of how the human body functions. Dr. Murphy is booked 50 weeks out of the year, traveling the world, teaching others how to achieve true health and wellness in their practices and their own lives. Dr. Murphy is also a hell of a clinician and one of the most respected doctors in this field. I'm going to now bring him on the line. Dr. Murphy, this webinar is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm looking at the picture of myself there, and that is actually what I look like. That picture was taken last week. I know sometimes you see a dear Abby, and it would look like you would think she was 50 when she was 90. But this is actually me, and I am 56 years of age. I am a full professor at Life Chiropractic College West. I've been associated with Life West now for 29 years. It's a precious relationship for me. I've been a chiropractor for 34 years. I've been at Life West for 29 years. And what you're looking at there is the note about my elevation to a full professorship at Life Chiropractic College West. I'm also a pretty good teacher out there. I know a lot of you I've had in school. I don't want to say I get part-time faculty year every year, but I might. I don't know. I don't pay as much attention to it, but someone had sent me this, and I did get part-time faculty of the year this year. They gave it to me in June. And those of you that know me know that I teach a lot of classes. I write a lot of things, chapters and books and articles. I am not a primary researcher. I'm what they call a literature searcher, which means I am constantly reviewing the literature to see things that we can do to make ourselves healthier and to live longer. My personal goal is to live to be 132 years of age. The reason that number is that I would love to see my oldest daughter turn 100, and she came when I was 32 years of age, so I'm trying to push up to 132. So I've done everything I can trying to figure out the strategies that can help me do that, short of caloric restriction. I've tried caloric restriction, and frankly, I would rather be dead than do caloric restriction. It just seems like it's absolutely no fun. So I've come up with a lot of other strategies, of which I'm going to share with you today. By the way, you're looking at my biography. Oh, it's a little old. It's a 2009, but you kind of get an idea about who I am and what I've accomplished in my career so far. What I did yesterday is I went to the PubMed database, and for those of you that are unfamiliar with the PubMed database, the PubMed database is, quote-unquote, the real literature. The PubMed database is the search engine for the National Library of Medicine of the United States of America that is physically located in Bethesda, Maryland. This database has around 20 million articles, probably just over that now. It tends to log in about another 7,000 articles per day. And looking at what makes us old or what makes us ill, the theory that is most prevalent in the literature is called the free radical theory of aging, and that you can search it very easily by just going to the PubMed database and typing in reactive oxygen species, which I did yesterday. By the way, the call letters, if any of you want to do this on your own, is www.pubmed, which is PUBMED.gov. And then that will give you a page where you can type in whatever you want on the search bar. Last night I typed in reactive oxygen species, and just take a look. There's 113,166 articles that will be pulled up by typing in those keywords as of last night. I also typed in the words on a product that I'm going to talk about today. It's called Protandim. If you go to the PubMed database and you type in Protandim, there are 8 articles that have been published so far. All of them are fun. All of them are very interesting. The one that I'm going to talk a little bit extra about is the very first one that was ever done, and it's number 8 here. So a little bit later in the presentation, I'm going to show you some specific components of that article. But if you look through all of these articles, but the very first one, which is the most recent, all the rest of these articles have a common author, and it's this guy here. His name is Joe McCord. And McCord's going to be a big player. I mean, this guy discovered one of maybe the most important thing in longevity, and he did it back in 1969. Yet a lot of people, including healthcare providers, do not understand what it is. And so part of my assignment this day is to make sure that you know what it is. I went to the very first out of those 113 plus articles, the very first article on free radical and aging was done by this guy, a guy named Dan Harmon, and he was from the University of California at Berkeley. And he got it published in 1956 in the Journal of Gerontology. So this is what they call the PubMed abstract. So I just popped it up, and then as you can see over here, you can get the full article. So I did that, and I just scanned it into my presentation, and it's 1, 2, 3 pages long. But I scored certain parts of it. Jumping back up for a second, aging, a theory based on free radical and radiation chemistry. Dan Harmon, MD, PhD, from the University of California at Berkeley, which is not too far from Life Chiropractic College West, where I'm part-time faculty. Both are in Alameda County in Northern California. The parts that I scored: deleterious side effects of free radicals, which are normally produced in the course of cellular metabolism. Since genes would be expected to be attacked occasionally, it would be anticipated that mutations and cancer would result. A slow oxidation of connective tissue by molecular oxygen catalyzed by metals. And this is going to be important for us this day, this presentation. Looking at metals right here. Metals are important because when we get in contact with metals, we increase the productions of free radicals, which means neutralizing these free radicals becomes ever so much more important. Further down says increased cellular concentrations of an easily reduced compound such as cysteine, which affords some radiation protection, would be expected to slow down the aging process and thereby to put off the appearances of diseases associated with it. The key word in this paragraph is actually the word cysteine, which is why I scored it under with red there. That's because cysteine is an amino acid. And the key is when cysteine exists as a component of a protein, and that proteins are put together by genes. So that if you could turn on genes that produce proteins that have cysteine, you are better at neutralizing free radicals. Now, this is 1956, and remember, this is part of what I will tell you Dr. Joe McCord did. He figured out a way to upregulate these genes that are related to this and other ways to neutralize free radicals. Lastly, hydrogen donors, such as, once again, cysteine, for example, might be of benefit in the fields of cancer, chemotherapy, and nutrition. We're going to look at it specifically this day from a nutritional perspective. Summary: aging on the degenerative diseases associated with it are attributed basically to the deleterious side effects of free radicals on cellular constituents and on connective tissues. The free radicals probably arise largely through reactions involving molecular oxygen catalyzed in the cells by oxidative enzymes and in the connective tissues by trace metals such as we will look at a number of them. My favorite books on this, I'm a book reader. Those of you that know me know that my passion is reading technical books. This book I found to be very interesting, a book on antioxidant adaptation, its role in free radical pathology. So much of what I'm going to cover with all of you for the rest of this webinar is in fact well summed up in this particular book. It's kind of technical. I also like this book. I know that some of you that are listening to me are trainers. This is one of the most awesome books ever because this is the guy that got America exercising. His name is Ken Cooper. Some of you who are younger don't remember Ken Cooper, but in the late 60s, he started the aerobic movement. He wrote a book on aerobics. In fact, he's actually the guy that invented the word aerobics. But after 26 years of research, he says there's a problem, and that is if you over-exercise and don't have adequate antioxidant defenses, you actually accelerate the aging process and the degenerative disease process. So when you look at the words up there next to his picture, delay the signs of aging and reduce the risk of cancer and heart disease with this powerful new prevention program. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the best stuff in prevention of these free radical things that I have seen so far in the PubMed database. This book here is extremely readable. In fact, I believe all of you that are listening to me should read this book if you have not done so already. I know a lot of you have already read this book. A lot of you have my suggestion, The Antioxidant Miracle by Les Packer, also from the University of California, Berkeley, one of the top antioxidant researchers in the world today. Very simple book to read. Like it quite a bit. This book, in contrast, is quite technical, but the message is the same. Being a technical book, the cost is much higher. It's like $138 to buy this 2002 book. Nutrition and Immune Function by Philip Calder. But the message is the same. It's all about free radicals and antioxidation and the things that we can do to make our lives better and longer simultaneously. This is the best book, in my view, that has ever been written in world history in terms of health. And it's written by a recently retired neurosurgeon from Jackson, Mississippi. His name is Russell Blaylock. It's titled Health and Nutrition Secrets That Can Save Your Life. For those of you who desire to be the best, for those of you that have listened to me in actual seminars before, know how highly I think of this guy and this book. I think it's the book that all of us should know about, particularly because it's right on topic for what we're doing today. Specifically, if you look at the very first chapter of the book, do all degenerative changes have a common cause? You see the number 1 there. This is how the book begins. Do all degenerative changes have a common cause? Well, they do. It says, if you look what I scored in red, our cells are producing destructive particles called free radicals, and that over a lifetime, these free radicals chip away at our cells. We call this process aging. Oxygen is a powerful destroyer of life. Few of us are aware that this same life-giving oxygen is slowly killing us and making us sick. The reason is oxygen becomes a free radical as a component of just normal breathing. So when you exercise more, you breathe more. When you breathe more, you make more free radicals. And it is even more critical for people that are exercising to take these concepts seriously. We have to neutralize these free radicals if we want to avoid degenerative changes, if we want to slow down the aging process, etc. Dr. Blaylock further says that when the free radical reaction begins, it is these fatty acids that are damaged. This is important. The reason I scored this is because some of the best ways that they assess if an approach to health is reducing the free radical damage, they are looking at the free radical damage that is done to the fatty acids. When they are damaged, it is measurable. So that tells us just how much damage is happening in our bodies, and consequently, if we're doing something to stop that damage, it is also measurable. Free radical damage to these membranes severely affects cellular function, and it does. The organ of perception for the cell is the membrane. The brains of the cell is the membrane. The key to cell physiology is the membrane. The membrane is made out of these fats. When these fats are damaged by free radicals, that's when the cell starts to become dysfunctional. And when the cells are dysfunctional, the person that owns those cells becomes dysfunctional. Yet there are solutions, and that's what I'm going to get to. Fats are nothing but a bunch of carbons that are strung together. So what I did here in this slide is I strung together 4 carbons. The free radicals primarily damage what is called the carbon-to-carbon double bond. So I put the carbon-to-carbon double bond right in the middle of the slide. That's the equal sign. That's where the free radicals will attack. And when they attack that, they damage that fat, and then you're in trouble. By the way, when they damage that fat, they call it lipid peroxide. And lipid peroxides are very deleterious to human health and physiology, and yet you can measure them. There's a number of ways to measure them. I will show you probably the best accepted way to measure them as I continue down this presentation. The origins of free radicals, metabolism, that just means breathing, inflammation, stress, environmental toxins. I'm going to talk primarily about those 4 guys as we continue down this presentation. I'm also a very big fan of this book by Dr. David Perlmutter. He is a neurologist living in Naples, Florida. He's written a number of books on the topic. I think that he's way smart. I advocate all of his books. My favorite book, at least for my family, since I have 2 daughters, is that he did a book a few years ago that claims that you can raise your children's IQs 30 points by the time they go to kindergarten if, in fact, you can appropriately reduce the consequences of toxins and the free radicals that they generate. In fact, Dr. Perlmutter, in his book, The Better Brain Book, which came out in 2004, in this book he defines what makes a toxin toxic. What makes a toxin toxic, in Chapter 8 of this book, you can see what I scored in red there. What makes toxins toxic is the fact that they rev up free radical production and promote inflammation. Now, you've got to get the point. This is the point. If we live in an environment that has lots of toxins, we get lots of free radicals. The more toxin the environment, the more free radicals we get. The more free radicals we get, the more critical it is that we neutralize them before they do damage to cellular physiology. And then you take a look at this. And this should take everyone on this webinar's breath away. Referencing time, May 24 of 2010, you can see the date there in the bottom right. They sum up, if you look at